Over the years, you probably read countless books, underlined sentences, and thought to yourself, one day I will write something this beautiful. Maybe you tried and convinced yourself that you're not ready, and maybe you just need to learn more about the writing process. You've probably considered going back to school to get a creative writing degree, an MFA as we call it. Or you've considered taking online courses or workshops that might help you get started. If you've been stuck in the cycle of reading a book after another while you have wanted to write a story, a book, a novel for a very long time, let me show you how to finally get those ideas into the page. Hi friends, my name is Mohammed and I'm a writer, and in this channel we explore tools and habits that help us fit reading and writing into our busy life so that we can tell our own stories, stay creative and clear-headed. And in this video I want to share with you 10 practical tips to move you from just reading and dreaming about writing to actually sitting down and putting words together and starting your writing habit. Tip number 1 is realizing that you will never feel 100% ready. No writer that I know, no writer that I have read for have sort of felt ready to tackle on a new project or let alone starting their writing journey. Everyone starts at a different time. I know some authors like John Green, the author of Paper Towns. He became an aspiring writer, or he knew he wanted to be a writer since I think even before he turned 10. But some people don't realize their dream to become a writer until later on. And there is no moment where you will feel like you are, now I have gained enough education to become a writer or to gain a permission from anyone. Being a writer just means that you give yourself the permission to write the stories that you know. That's it. I moved to the US from Yemen almost 20 years ago. I was in high school and I did not want to be a writer. I did not even dream to become a writer. My whole challenge, or my biggest challenge, was how to learn this new language and fit into this new culture that I was moved into. And for many, many years, I just tried to read one book. The first book that I tried to read and complete took me 3 years. It was The Giver, and it was one of the hardest books that I read because it was the first book that I read in the English language. And I didn't start to aspire to become a writer until I read for maybe 5 straight years, book after book after book. And then one day I thought, maybe I should create these dreamy places and characters that I enjoy so that other people can have the same experience, that look like me, that relate to my own story, culture, background, and everything else. And at the time I was in my early 20s, and that is okay. It doesn't have to be a dream that starts in your childhood in order for you to become a writer. If you want to be a writer, you're a writer, start writing. Tip number 2 is learn from the books that you enjoy. Once you decided I want to become a writer, you have maybe read for a few years, or you've read all your life. So narrow down the type of books that you enjoy, because they will most likely be the type of books that you want to write like. So if you like crime novels, then you'll probably be more interested in writing a crime novel or a crime story. If you are interested in fantasy or in horror novels or whatever the case might be, whatever you are interested in reading, it will most likely inform what you want to write about. And once you decide what genre or what type of books or novels that you are can connect with, then those books you have to narrow down your top 10 or your favorite type of books or authors, because those are the ones that you want to read multiple times, at least twice. First time is for enjoyment, and the second time is for you to actually study what the author is trying to do in the story. And you want to take notes on the margins about your favorite maybe sentences, but also the pacing of the story, the release of information, how do they start the novel or start the story, what is their first line, and all of those things you will learn as you go, because right now you are reading not as a reader, but you are reading as a writer. And once you start reading with that mentality, then all the things that you start to read from that point forward will be a learning moment. You start absorbing sentences, the way things are talked about, the tone of the author, the twists, and everything else becomes for you tools that you can use in your actual writing. This doesn't mean that you have to remember everything that you read, but it just means that your brain is aware of the things that it's absorbing, therefore will record them in the back of your mind or the back of your brain so that you can use them whenever they are needed. One of the most recommended books that I have given to people who tell me that they're aspiring authors, aspiring writers, is Becoming a Writer by Dorothy Brand. And in her book she says that once you start reading books that you enjoy twice, and in the second time you write notes, then you will get to a point where you read a book once and you will get all the information from it as if you read it for the second time. That mental muscle of absorbing information and realizing what's good about the story, what's working and what's not working, is start coming to you from the first read. Tip number 3 is start small. Usually we feel inspired and we want to write a novel in one setting. It's not going to happen. You're not even going to write a short story in one setting unless you are, I don't know, Stephen King. It rarely happens. Sometimes those stories come rushing at us and they are demanding to be written, and we write them and they work. But most of the time, most of the stories take a lot of time. And in the very beginning, what you should be concerned over is not the content, is not how good the story is not how complete the story is not even how believable the characters are. It's actually developing the writing habit itself, and then worrying about the quality of the content later. And the way to develop the habit is not to show up every day and that's it. It's actually to start by achieving less than what you think or you expect yourself to achieve. For example, if you think you have the whole day to write, which is rare, then sit down and write for less than what you think your stamina holds. If you think you can sit down and write for an hour, then write for 30 minutes or even 20 minutes in the very beginning. And do that for a couple of days, even a week. And then you want to increase it bit by bit. This way you are not fatigued, you don't burn out from every writing session. But if you're busy like me, if you have a family, you have a full-time job, and you have things that are happening in the side, then you want to even be more forgiving to yourself. And instead of expecting yourself or telling yourself, all right, I'll sit for an hour and write, sit and write for 10 minutes, for 20 minutes, less than what you think you can achieve, so that you can get that reward mechanism built in, so that you can allow yourself to come back the next day while you are excited. So the writing session that you expect yourself to sit down for every day doesn't become a burden that you have to force it through your schedule, and instead of something that you can do, before you go to sleep or during your commute to work. Tip number 4 is write what excites you. It's often the case that in the very beginning, we fall into the trap of writing or trying to write stuff that we think other people will be proud of. This could be our friends, our significant other, the group that we are a part of, or even our parents. And so we force ourselves to write things that are not even interesting to us, would give us some sort of status signaling with other people that we care about. But in this case, you will not be able to have the stamina or even stick to the writing habit unless you write stuff that you are very, very excited about. And you discover these things from observing the books that you enjoy, or even the topics that you like to talk about, the sort of political landscape that you grew up in and how you feel about it, your political opinions. Not that you are going to write politics into your writing, but if that's the case, then that's fine. But those things sort of define your tone, your perspective, your position on how you write or tackle actual stories. In the writing community, this is often called write what you know. And I am a strong believer of this. If you write what you know, or you write the things that you have experienced, seen, feel about, then the writing is much easier. Writing is already hard enough. Don't try to make it even harder by writing to people or writing to please people that might not even read your work. Tip number 5 is imitate before you innovate. And some people don't even need this. They just sit and write, and their voice is clear. They know how to write the story from our perspective. They just have it. But for most of us, we learn our voice, or we gain confidence about our voice from imitating others. So take your favorite author and try to rewrite your favorite story from that favorite author, but from your perspective. During my MFA, there was a student that used to literally take a story that he loves, and it could be about, how an American cop, an NYPD cop, treats black people in America. This is a random example. And he will take that story with the same exact structure and apply it to New Zealand and how cops there treat indigenous people there. Very, very simple transformation. The story then becomes very, very different. The content is different, but the pacing, the structure of the story, from what perspective or point of view is written, is all imitated from the already published story. And if you do this often enough, then you will start to realize what you are good at, what you're not good at, what part of your imitation from the particular author you want to take, and which part that you find too hard and you don't want to take. And from all these pieces, something will emerge, and that's something we call voice. And I sincerely believe this is what readers go back to when they are reading multiple books for one single author. I think we go back for how their voice makes us feel. And what we want to do is to have that clarity with our voice, or that confidence, so that each story, even if it is different, even if it has a different tone, a different time period, a different characters, there is a thread that connects between one story and the other, sort of to the point where someone can read two stories that have no title, no names, but they can tell that it's ours. Tip number 6 is embrace discovery first draft. Anne Lamott, in her craft book Bird by Bird, which I highly recommend everyone to read who are an aspiring author, aspiring writer, is that first drafts are always going to be bad. She calls them shitty first drafts because they are messy, they make no sense, they don't have a structure, they have a bunch of things that do not need to be there, but you have to embrace them and you have to be forgiving to yourself, because they are the draft that you will take and shape the story that will become the story that you publish. Often enough, when we sit to write for the first time after getting an inspiration for a story, we want every sentence to be perfect. This is a huge mistake, and it will do a disservice to the story itself. It will do the disservice to your emotional engagement with the story, because in the very beginning, you don't need to know everything that's happening in the story. You don't even need to write an outline. Just sit and write until the story forms. And after that very first draft, then you can go back and edit some more, take out, add, until you bring out the story out of the debris. So the rule of thumb for once you get an epiphany for a new idea is to write the first draft as fast as possible and as soon as possible, because once you are on the other side, you can take a step back, read the draft, and decide what you leave and what you take out, and what the second draft during the edits will look like, because it is in edits where you actually bring out the story. Tip number 7 is create a writing ritual, and this is so that you can just write almost every day. It's hard to write every day. It's very, very hard, and especially for people who are parents or you have full-time job. And you should be forgiving to yourself. If you miss a day here and there, that's fine. But what rituals help you with is bringing triggers into your brain so that you can do the writing at the same time, at the same place, every day. That helps. And I've noticed for the past 10 years, my writing rituals, or the writing time that I write in, has been different. In the very beginning, I used to write whenever I wanted, because I was only a student in college and I would write between classes, late at night or early in the morning. I had a lot more flexible schedule. Then I got married and I had a little more constraints. I got a full-time job and that added a bit more constraints. So I remember I used to write early morning before I even go to my job, and then I will go, and then later at night, sometimes I will even have a editing session. Now with a 3-year-old, married, a full-time job, a YouTube channel, and all the other things that are happening for my life, it's harder to fit a writing session. So what I usually do is I would write first thing before I go to work. That still works sometimes, but what I've also learned that I can write or take part of my lunchtime and make it a writing session. I'm given an hour of lunchtime. It takes me 12 minutes to eat my lunch, or 15 minutes. So I will take 45 minutes to sit and write. I've even started a writing group out of this. We call it the Midday Writing Group, created a Zoom link, and my friends and I would log in and greet each other, say hi, and start writing right away. No distractions, no phones, nothing. We just write 40 minutes on weekdays. And if you want to join, I will leave the link somewhere in the description so that you can start that writing habit. The goal is to write during the time when your social circle is asleep or away from you, and then also control the things that you can control, which is turning off your devices, your notifications, so that you can stay focused on the writing session itself. Tip number 8 is do not fall for perfection. You will write a story, a first draft, and you will edit it, you will make it better, and you will feel the need to continuously make it better by replacing sentences, words, clarifying a character, adding another character. But the trap here is there is no story, or the realization here is that there is no story that is perfect. You just have to work on a story hard enough for long enough until it feels like complete. And complete is not 100% satisfaction. 80% 90% is a very, very good number to shoot for. You will need to learn to let go of projects so that you can move to the next one, because that perfectionism feeling is literally a procrastination mechanism for you not to move on to the next challenge or to the next story. So you have to be very, very be careful. Do not stay writing one story or one novel for the rest of your life. The goal is to write as many stories, as many novels as possible with integrity, with the full capacity that write that story deserves, but also not to be trapped in one story forever. Tip number 9 is share your work. This is probably the most terrifying step of the writing process, because writing is a solitary activity, solitary practice, and once you feel ready or once you have completed something, sharing it with others is opening all of the opportunity for people to judge your work, how you feel about things, your politics, your perspective, and the vulnerabilities that it takes for you to pour into one project. But this sharing work, on the one side, there is the publication and putting it out there for the world to see. But sharing your work here, actually, I'm talking about giving people opportunity to read your work and give you feedback. This could be friends, significant others, other writers, and this is the one I prefer the most because you can basically give feedback to each other. And for me, this has been the catalyst that improved my writing the most. Sharing my work with others, giving me feedback, and then reading their work with care and with preciseness, and then giving them feedback. You learn from this process more than any other thing that you can introduce into your writing. Courses, workshops, there's nothing compared to a writing group that you can share your work with. And for me, I joined an MFA, a creative writing program, and that's where I found the group that I'm a part of. And so it came with the program, but for a lot of people, they either do not afford going to a program, or it's just hard because of family circumstances, time, work, kids. So the way you find these writing groups are either online, Facebook groups, local libraries, or even taking workshops, online courses, so that you can meet other people who are like-minded, and then from there you connect with them outside the workshop course, and then see if they are willing to, you know, exchange stories. You're probably thinking, oh, but I'm not gonna find like-minded people. Trust me, you will find a bunch of weirdos just like you, who care about the same things that you care about, who write in the same style or in the same approach, who like the same authors that you do. And all you need to be is the torch in the dark for them to see you, to be attracted, or to come to you. All you need to do is introduce yourself, reach out, email, do that type of outreach in order for you to create that group. People are feeling exactly what you are feeling. They feel intimidated by reaching out to others. They feel like there are no group of people that are like them, and everyone then stays imprisoned or stuck in their own bubble. But if you do the outreach, you will find the people. Tip number 10 is celebrate every milestone. Writing is a beautiful, beautiful journey, and we develop and we grow in many, many different ways. Some of us will end up publishing novels and become New York Times bestsellers and be in the New Yorker and do all the dreamy things. And some of us will stick to just writing for our family and friends, and both things are fine. We do not write because we want to gain any material thing. Not for money, not for fame, because if you're in it for money or fame, then writing is not the business that you should go into, because very rarely that people can even sustain themselves and their family from writing. But we write because we know no better way or no other way to quiet the voices and express ourselves and release the stories that we are continuously thinking about, except on the page. And if you're writing for that purpose, then you will do it for life, not for the publications or the money. And on the way, you will complete shitty first drafts, and you should celebrate those. So celebrate every moment. When you finish a first draft, when you find friends that you can exchange stories with, or when you even, if you're lucky, publish a short story at a journal or magazine, or even publish a book. Celebrate it from the beginning and celebrate it at the end, because there is no other craft that I know that bring the satisfaction of starting something from nothing and bringing it to life and give it to people, and they read it or they experience it, and it is completely different than the way you intended. This is what writing stories is like. That's it for this video. I will leave the link to the Midday Writing Group and also my newsletter, which I send weekly about writing, books that I'm reading, and other things that I'm finding on the web, life lessons, the whole thing, down below. And if you have enjoyed this video, then you will likely enjoy my video on the reasons that you probably do not enjoy writing right here. Go watch it. In the meantime, thank you for watching and keep writing.